How are they winning these games? How? How?
I think we're going head to head here.
Gonna take a
Nevada.
goddamn shower after this segment.
The Big Bets on Campus podcast.
All right, here we go.
What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Week 7 college football betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my fellow BBOC co-host, Collin Wilson. Got a great slate ahead of us with a number of marquee matchups, which we'll get to in just a moment. Heads up, we do record 3 and Out live, 6 p.m. Eastern, every Thursday night on our YouTube channel. So we will cover pretty in-depth the LSU Ole Miss games and the LSU Ole Miss game and Red River, Texas, Oklahoma. So if you're looking for those games, they will be at the end of the episode. We also cover some Quit Watch. A lot of teams right now on Quit Watch early in the college football season. And no, I am not betting UAB unless hopefully, well, we'll talk about that later. But let's just dive right in to the marquee matchups of the weekend. All right, we'll cover 3 here. As I said, LSU, Ole Miss, Red River at the end of the show. Let's start with Penn State, USC. Well, I can't win this bet. My track record with Penn State at 12%. 12% against the spread. Went back and looked over the past couple of years trying to bet Penn State. They have consistently either found ways to cover as a favorite or let me down when I backed them as a favorite. I don't know. They're sitting here as around a 4.5 point favorite here. Total 50.5. Man, I mean, when I look at this game, Nick Singleton should play. I think he is important. He was really missed last week for Penn State. He provides that explosive rushing element to this offense. They're still not hitting enough explosives. They still go pretty slow. And USC, the problem I have with them and their offense here is, can their offensive line hold up? Can their tackles hold up? And I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. And that could just basically put their offense into the dumpster. So I'm inclined to lean under here. Penn State, very methodical, very slow. Yeah, explosive elements still missing from the offense. And then USC, I just think, is not going to be able to do what it wants to do on offense because of the matchup up front. But once again, I don't know anything when it comes to Penn State games. This is your chance to try to convince me on a side or whatever you're thinking. What do you got here?
Yeah, I took Penn State -3. I think you and I talked about it on Sunday when we were doing the recap pod. I thought this thing would rise, and it did. Finally caught some resistance up around 5.5 and 6. Because there's major issues with USC and their offensive line, specifically at both tackle positions. They are inexperienced, they are undersized, and they have no depth. That is a real problem against a Penn State defense that right now is ranked 5th in pass rush. And I get the strength of schedule hasn't been high for Penn State, but I have a lot of faith that Penn State is producing edge rushers that are going to get to quarterbacks. Another problem, Miller Moss came out on fire from a time to throw perspective. How long did it take Miller Moss to get rid of the football? About 2.02 seconds in the first 2 games. That number has crawled over what the standard is of 2.5. You can't have these kinds of offensive tackles and just pass blocking in general, have this be this poor and release the ball over 2.5 seconds. It is a major problem. And if you're going to be a passing offense, you've got to fix this. The numbers are bad when they get into scoring position. Offensively, they're 63rd. If they are not getting explosives, which USC has not been producing any on offense on the ground or through the air, it's going to be a problem. I say all that. I mean, there's resistance on this number. I'm not really sure I would still buy USC. I could buy the fact that Penn State's traveling west. I could buy the fact that they're going to start slow. But at the same time, there's numbers that are coming out of Kotelnicki here. I mean, they have some problems with pass blocking, but it doesn't matter. USC generates no pass rush. They're 83rd in havoc. They can't defend the rush. So, Singleton, if he plays, Katron Allen, they're going to have no problems running the ball whatsoever. USC's.
That's what Minnesota did last week.
Yeah.
Minnesota ran it 40 times for 200 yards, and Penn State's backfield is better. Their offensive line, their scheme is better. You have to respect their pass more. And USC, they missed last week? Eric Gentry,
Yeah.
who I think is going to be out for the year. In his place, I think he's their best run defender. It might be their highest rated defender on the season. In his place now, you get who is it? The kid Beavers?
Yeah.
And last week, let me look at how his last week he played.
He's had 49 total snaps this year. So
yeah, and he played, I think, let's see. Yeah, he played how many snaps he played last week? 44 snaps last week. And before, this is a guy I think that was slotted to play, strong safety. So this is like a position change for him as well. Not as good of a run defender. So I think Penn State can replicate what Minnesota did with their success on the ground, going slow, which again, I think it lends me to the under here, which I'll probably be on.
Let me say this about Eric Gentry. Because you mentioned it, I just wanted to look it up. The best run defender on this team, it's not even close. PFF grades him 91.8. The next best run defender, corner Greedy Vance at 75.7. The massive drop in run defense here is unbelievable. How many missed tackles so far? 40 this year, none from Eric Gentry. This is bad. I think there could be a case to be made that Penn State starts slow because they're out west. I think there'd be a case to be made that they'll keep it close because they're going to run the ball and have some with that. I don't know how you bet USC. I can't. I make the game 6. I'd still bet it.
All right, you like Penn State. I like the under.
Yep.
Maybe I'll join you. Not going on the board yet. We have 2 on the board already in the agree category from 3 and out. We're going to have some more additions soon, but let's move on. Before we get to Oregon, Ohio State, obviously the biggest game of the day, let's talk a little Colorado, Kansas State. And Colorado now, surprisingly, right in the mix in the Big 12. I mean, if you look at the Big 12 standings right now, Colorado sits at 2-0, Kansas State 1-1. I mean, this is close to, who knows in the Big 12, but this could be an elimination game for Kansas State. So they are sitting at, still around 4 as we record this. Colorado has taken some money. Is it spread still at 4?
There's 3.5s. There's 3. You can't even keep up with this thing. It keeps diving. It's 3.5s now.
3.5s. I show value in Kansas State, but I may have underestimated Colorado. It's shown me some things. Yep. But maybe that game against UCF. Maybe that they were the ones who forced UCF to quit. But I worry about the Kansas State secondary here. The Kansas State secondary is extremely vulnerable, and they're also, their pass rush doesn't really scare me that much to make Sanders really pay for, still an offensive line that has issues. But that's what happened against UCF. UCF had issues in the secondary, and they haven't been really getting home against the quarterback. I do think that, from a props perspective, this is a huge game for Kansas State. Why not? You got to unleash Avery Johnson, who's still an inconsistent passer, and his legs. How does he not go over his rushing prop? Because you look at Colorado can't defend mobile quarterbacks. And you look all season long. Let's go through the games here. North Dakota State in the opener, Cam Miller, 16 for 81. Let's see. What are the other mobile quarterbacks they faced? What did Jefferson do? Jefferson went 20 for 76. And did they face one other mobile quarterback? Oh, Baylor. I mean, Sawyer Robertson.
Yeah.
Sawyer Robertson was running on these guys. He 9 for 82 for old Sawyer. So I'm gonna dabble in some Avery Johnson, maybe some upside there with like 100 plus or something. But I'm worried about the Kansas State secondary here. What do you say?
I don't think that is the only prop you should be hitting. Wrote this up for Action Network, a huge preview. I have never come out with so many prop bets in my life, and I'm not a prop better. Let's first off, let's address the fact that yes, I took a Kansas State -6 in this spot coming off of a bye. I thought Colorado would be on the downswing. Didn't happen. You're going to see live wagers covering up that 6 on Kansas State if I get the opportunity. Maybe they get the ball first, maybe they score. Just so everybody out there knows, if I can cover up that 6, I will, because I am way more interested in a couple of props and I'm way more interested in the total. Here's the reason why. Well, first off, I'm nervous about Kansas State because the last time they went on a road in primetime, BYU just carved them up. Wasn't even close. It was over fast. They've had no success. Kansas State's had no success in stopping opposing passing teams. Arizona marched up and down the field. I know what the final score was, but they were up and down the field. BYU destroyed them. Now, from a rush perspective, Kansas State is good against outside zone, not as good against inside zone. What does Colorado run? A lot of inside zone is what beat UCF. Colorado against UCF absolutely destroyed their defensive line between the tackles. 27 attempts, a 60% success rate, 5.2 yards per play from a Colorado rushing attack. Keep in mind, UCF is still ranked third nationally in defensive rushing success rate, and Colorado destroyed them. What? Isaiah Augustave averaged 10 yards per carry on 4 inside zone reads. 10 yards per carry on an inside zone? So the handicap really for Colorado, we know is Shedeur Sanders, how great he is. 15 big time throws, a turnover worthy play rate less than 1%. But the guy that's going to cook here is LaJohntay Wester. The slot has massive advantages, what Kansas State is going to put in front of him. The Kansas State defensive finishing drives rank comes from allowing more field goals than touchdowns. That is not the Colorado offense. Colorado is all about quick touchdowns. You go to the other side of the ball, you mentioned it, Stuck. I mean, Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, high rush explosives here. I don't expect that to change. Connor Riley's kept up what Collin Klein was doing. Multiple run concepts coming out of there. 25 plays of inside zone, power, counter, or man. They run everything. Johnson, 220 yards on the ground from designed run calls and 5 explosives. You're right, Stuck. He should absolutely cook here. Passing, don't even try, right? It's been way below expectation. And frankly, the offensive line has allowed 46 pressures and 142 dropbacks. And Johnson, 0 big time throws, 5 turnover worthy plays when he has hands in his face. It's not working out for Avery Johnson from a passing perspective. Let's give credit to the Colorado defensive coordinator, Robert Livingston, who came in from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
He's improved a number of areas here. Colorado's allowing just 2.7 points on drives across the 40. This is the 10th best team in the nation in stops. That is a PFF metric that defines a play as the offense had a complete failure, basically a one-on-one tackle, right? Colorado's 10th. I mean, that is a disciplined defense. Here's one stat I could not get over. I still can't get over this. Colorado State offense is a major 3-and-out team, one of the highest ranking 3-and-out teams. They are also one of the highest TD drives team. It's boom or bust all the way. Either I'm 3 plays and out or I'm touchdown with Shedeur Sanders' arm. Kansas State opponents are 16th fastest time in FBS in touchdown scores. When Kansas State allows you to get a touchdown,
They're giving up a ton of explosive passes. Like that's
it's within 2 minutes.
Think about all the busted coverages they had like against Tulane.
Corners, last thing I'll say, corners Jacob Parrish and Keenan Garber, they're going to be responsible for tracking down Travis Hunter. They've allowed 34 or 51 targets to hit, and most of them explosive. I see Colorado taking shots, and I see success. I see Wester being that, but more importantly, Stuck, I would take an Avery Johnson prop. I would take a Wester prop. I would take a Shedeur prop. I think Colorado this is going to be a lot of numbers here. I take the over. The over is the best play for me.
All right, let's move on to the big one between Oregon and Ohio State. A top 5 matchup in Eugene at Autzen Stadium. Rare for Oregon to be a home dog. I think they've been favored in 33 straight. You got to go back to 2017 or 2018 against Washington, the last time that they were a home dog. This line sitting around 3. Saw some Ohio State money early. It's been a consistent trickle of Oregon since. Limits are raised now. Are there gonna be some potential buy orders on Ohio State at 3? I don't know. Haven't flashed yet. Are there groups waiting? I don't know. Interesting market. This game is really difficult for me to handicap because Ohio State hasn't really faced anybody, and these Big Ten seasons are 2 games now. If you're atop the Big Ten, it's not like the SEC. Your seasons are 2 games, and this year, Michigan is terrible, so it's not Michigan. What are they going to be? 3 touchdown favorites by that point in that game? Honestly, they might be 3 touchdown favorites against Michigan. So their season is at Oregon and at Penn State. And they probably get in the playoff, they lose both. But you win those games, you're setting yourself up to win the Big Ten, to get a bye. So like we've seen with other teams in the Big Ten recently, why show anything, right? And they've probably been holding some things for this game. And I'm sure Oregon has been holding some things for this game. Although Oregon has at least played in a close game where we had to see a bit more. Now, you could take that one of 2 ways. All right, they've actually been tested. They played in a close game. But on the flip side, they should have lost at home to Boise State. Now, Ashton Genty is the best running back in the country. I mean, is he just that good? He can't be stopped? Or are there questions with the Oregon run defense? On paper, it's like, you got a good defensive line. You have 2 really big bodies up front, Harmon, Caldwell. They can eat up space. You have Birch off the edge, who can do a lot of damage. Linebackers have been dealing with injuries, but my fear is their run defense, which I trust the Oregon pass defense more than their run defense. The metrics aren't great, but there's Genty in there. But then again, you look at Ohio State, they have a pretty damn good, you could argue the best running back duo in the country. They also have a great wide receiver room. I still have some questions about the offensive line in Ohio State. It looks like they finally settled on their right guard spot. They were rotating there until last week. The defense on paper is outstanding. The defensive line leaves a little bit for me, like just inconsistency. Like some weeks they look great, they flash. Some weeks it's like, where is the pressure? And just drive to drive basis. I just not all the way there. I'm just loving this D line yet, but the talent is there. Linebacker was the group that you had questions about coming into the year, but they look like they're improving, especially Styles on a week in, week out basis. My fear is that Ohio State, with how they can scare Oregon with their passing, because you have Igbukah and you have Jeremiah Smith, who is unbelievable already as a freshman. Spread them out, and then what is Chip Kelly best known as? Scheming up runs, and then they can just gash Oregon, similar to what Boise State did, without the scary passing attack. Right, that's my fear here. But my numbers say Oregon. Coming into the year, I had Oregon favored in this game, small. Now, since I've dropped Oregon a bit, they've improved. Their offensive line has improved as the season went on, but like the performance against Boise, you had to drop them. Ohio State, they've done what they're supposed to do. I've increased them a bit, but I still can't get the 3.
Right.
So the data points are lacking for both of these teams. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. We're going to learn a lot about a lot in this game, like many units, how good they really are. But I trust Lanning more than Day. Day has not been good in these top 5 road spots over the past, since he's arrived in Columbus. He gets like, he'll turtle. He'll get too conservative at times, like on a 4th down. And I trust Lanning to go for it here. Now, the Oregon offense, can it have success moving the ball? There's been no explosiveness. I think they do miss Bo Nix's legs and the mobile quarterback element. The offensive line has been better, but the quality of competition hasn't been great. I do think Oregon has a special teams edge as well. So maybe like the home field, this is how I'm trying to think about this. You have the home field, you have, I think, the coaching advantage on just like in-game decision-making, the special teams edge. And then my numbers say small edge. I might just, if I can get the hook, might just take Oregon on that basis, but it's not a super I don't feel super great about it just because of the lack of data points here. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I agree with you that 3.5 is where I would play. There is one national book out there as we're recording this. It's still holding 3.5 at a decent price. So that would be the last that I would buy of it. I am much more interested in a couple of players in this game. There's just so much familiarity between these two teams that I have to expect they're going to come out and spend.
Player prop Wilson. That's what a turn.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get into the X's and O's and the personnel and the scheme, and like just some things pop out. And there's a couple players in this game that I think purposely have been held off film. But let's talk about the familiarity between these two coaching staffs. Not does Chip Kelly know Oregon? Of course he does. He just coached at UCLA. He was a former coach there. It got him to the 2011 BCS title game. But that doesn't matter. The one coach that really knows everything is Carlos Lachlan. He is now the running backs coach of Ohio State. He was hired the first week of April from Oregon. So he knows, those running backs extremely well, and he knows how to attack the Oregon defense extremely well. So I think the first quarter is a feel it out process, like a boxing match with a bunch of jabs. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, 5.5 plus yards per carry. Their third down to average distance is 4.7 yards, one of the shortest in the nation, thanks to them staying in standard downs all the time. I don't want to get too much into the Ohio State stats. Both of the strength of schedules here have been pretty soft. And when they have faced rushing offenses, they've kind of been destroyed. I think the one thing that we haven't seen is that Will Howard had his most designed runs of the season last week at 6. He had over 40 designed runs for Kansas State last year. We all know he can tuck it and run. We haven't seen that. I think Chip Kelly's held it off film, and I think we're going to see a lot of that. Right now, Will Howard's over rushing prop is at 16.5. Go watch some Kansas State film. He's capable of doing what Oregon really doesn't defend as well as they do the pass, which is run right up the gut, run inside zone. You go to Oregon's defense has not been good in the extended red zone right now. Opponents are averaging 4.2 points per trip. I'd like to blame that on Boise, but it's not. This is a consistent problem in every game that they're at.
That is something that scares me in the red zone because Oregon has not been good in the red zone. And I also agree that this game probably starts slow. Like, feel each other out. I don't mind a first half under here. But for the full game, what scares me about Oregon is the red zone. So they don't have super big targets, right? At wide receiver, and they don't have Bo Nix's rushing ability, right? So it becomes much more difficult for them to execute when the field shrinks. Whereas Ohio State has receivers who can go up, get the ball, even with one hand. They have dynamic running backs. They have a quarterback that can run the ball and effectively use his legs. So I trust Ohio State to finish off drives in the red zone more than Oregon, which, really could end up being the difference.
Well, Ohio State runs a lot of inside zone, and Oregon has been shredded by it. So I do like Ohio State's ability to get down the field and run the ball. What's the strength of the Oregon defense? It's this second in the nation havoc, but that all comes from the secondary. 11 defenders have recorded a PBU here. There's a lot of reasoning to think that the secondary and the back seven of this Oregon defense is the one that's going to dominate when Will Howard decides to throw it up in the air. I think Will Howard's going to be fine. He's going to open up some lanes once he gets the ground game going. So from a total perspective, Stuck, I think we agree that I'm in the boat of first quarter under. There's going to be a point where this pivots and we're going to start throwing haymakers because just watch what Oregon's done on their explosive plays. There hasn't been that many from Dylan Gabriel, right? Let's go to the other side of the ball. Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon offensive passing has not been able to create a lot of explosives. They're pretty down in pass EPA right now. But look, Dylan Gabriel is not running the ball whatsoever. Look what they've done on their most explosive plays. It's on film. They move the pocket to the left. Dylan Gabriel runs RPO. They move the pocket to the left. Dylan Gabriel fakes that he's running, chucks it downfield. When that pocket starts moving for Oregon, you can expect some sort of explosive play to come. And that's really the only way they've been able to score because they've been pretty bad in the red zone. They've been pretty bad at finishing drives here. So, Gabriel's ADOT right now. I think Will Stein has purposely left Dylan Gabriel what he is capable of doing off film. Right now, his average depth of target is below 7, extremely Bo Nix-ish, but we know Dylan Gabriel can go deeper than that because his career at Oklahoma was well above that. 93rd in the red zone. I just think we're keeping Dylan Gabriel's legs off film. I think we're keeping his deep passing off film. And then Jordan James is a guy that I think you should take over 73.5 on his rushing yards. His power run concepts are going to dominate here. Ohio State's defense has seen 31 power run concepts this year. 11 of them were for explosive plays. Jordan James is dominating in power run concepts. 11 of his 31 attempts in power have gone for explosive plays. You flip over and look at Ohio State, they've been good against zone read option, 35% success rate against power, negative 0.6 EPA versus power. It is extremely low. It's horrible. Teams are successful in creating explosives with power run. That screams Jordan James. I like Jordan James over 73.5. You can get Dylan Gabriel to score a touchdown around plus 220-ish out there. I think you're going to see Gabriel's legs in the red zone because they have been horrific in the red zone so far in getting TDs. And I think it's because they've left a whole bunch off film. So I like Oregon in the 3.5. That'd be the last number I buy. I think the game starts slow. You can expect a live over to come in somewhere. Also keep in mind about coin flips. I know it's a short sample, but I went back a couple extra years. Dan Lanning right now is 90th in the middle eight. Ryan Day is 32nd in the middle eight. I'm not sure Ryan Day can finish this game, but around the middle eight, there's just been better clock management on the Ohio State side. But I like the over after we get about 2 series of just straight running. I think Will Howard's going to eclipse 16.5 because that's his better option than throwing into this Oregon secondary. Ultimately, Ducks pull this off by covering the number, but I definitely like Dylan Gabriel to get in, Jordan James to go over his prop, and Will Howard to get over his rushing prop.
Yeah, kind of on the same page. The 3.5 for Oregon. I think first half under is the look, but difficult game to handicap because data points have not been great. And I agree. I think both teams have been holding a lot back. So I'm really looking forward to watching this one. All right, let's move on to the rundown. Let's hit about 6 games here. Let's start Iowa State, West Virginia. I think we're going head to head here. I'm putting it on the board. We'll grade it at 3. I have some 3.5, but we'll grade it at 3. I like West Virginia here. I mean, look, Iowa State is going to hit some explosives in the air against this West Virginia secondary, but West Virginia's going to be able to run the ball on Iowa State. Iowa State's down to like 3 third stringers at linebacker now. It's bad. And they still haven't really played anybody. They had the comeback win against Iowa. West Virginia, by the way, their 2 losses are to Pitt and in a game they should have won. And boy, that Pitt team is lucky. They lost to Pitt and to Penn State, 2 teams who were undefeated. I think that the injuries for Iowa State are too much here. I think West Virginia can just run the ball and take advantage of these linebacker injuries. I like the ears.
Yeah,
Primetime Morgantown, baby. You like Iowa State.
Yeah, I do love Iowa State. There's a little bit of a havoc factor. I would worry about West Virginia, especially when they're not just absolutely running it up the gut, which they might do in this game. But Iowa State has better numbers defensively and quality in finishing drives. We'll see if that plays out here on the road. But, I'm uncomfortable on the fact that Iowa State is 115th in tackling. They're getting sloppy and they're allowing explosives. And
they have no linebackers left.
Right. I know. And West Virginia is top 25 in both rush and pass EPA. I think there's a havoc problem here for West Virginia. So if they play clean football and don't turn it over, by the way, West Virginia is near dead last in coverage grading. They're near dead. They're bottom 20 in finishing drives defensively. They've got to clean some stuff up through the air defensively because they have been taken advantage of on the back 7. Rocco Becht, maybe not shown it so far this year, but we know he has an absolute cannon. So we'll go head to head here, but West Virginia's got to play a clean football game for you.
I think the injuries at linebacker are too much. And by the way, let's look. You mentioned West Virginia's numbers on defense. Yeah, their secondary definitely has questions. But they played Penn State. They played Pitt. They played Kansas. They played who's Iowa State played? North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State, Houston before the quarterback change, who couldn't score a point for weeks, and Baylor. They haven't really played anybody yet. I like the years.
You're disparaging our Iowa offense? Come on now.
Well, we need them this week. More on that later. South Carolina at Alabama. You like South Carolina. You referenced this earlier this week.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get there. I'm just worried that they fall behind. Right. What is the path? Because then it's going to look like last week. But I think this number is inflated. I think a lot of times people are like, "Oh, this team lost. This big favorite got upset." But a lot of times they come out flat the next week, and then the line is inflated. And by the way, Alabama has Tennessee on deck. That South Carolina defense is still pretty good. You like the Cox here?
I do. I do. It's not, I mean, I like this number. I make it 19 and a half. That's what drew me to it above 21. And I think there's some things that you have to look at here. Like, is Alabama's offense going to be able to just instantly score through the air? I don't think so. I mean, South Carolina's top 10 in defensive passing success rate. They're rated 12th in coverage by PFF. That is a lot of data that tells me that South Carolina is playing legit defense against passing offenses. That could be a problem against, an Alabama team that thrives on creating quick explosives. And didn't Alabama have a problem with a mobile quarterback against South Florida? I mean, that's in there too. There's other things here. I mean, South Carolina is top 10 in defending pass explosives. That kind of takes, maybe they can do something with Ryan Williams, maybe, have 12 men on the field and have them all guard Ryan Williams. I don't know. But I think there's enough here to say that South Carolina, with a mobile quarterback on one side and then a very strong, havoc-minded, top 15 havoc defense with great coverage, can at least put a little bit of a dent in this Alabama offense and stop them up just a little bit. And you can't blame strength of schedule here for anything. Both these teams just slip inside the top 30. So these are legit numbers that South Carolina has on defense defending the pass.
Has Fortune been announced? Yeah, I would be a little bit concerned if I haven't seen the official yet. If Fortune, South Carolina starting corner, is out, he got nicked up last week.
That'd be a buy-off. That would be a buy-off.
That's something to monitor. Arizona, BYU. I think Arizona gets them.
Yeah, I mean, we never believed in BYU from the beginning, and we know what Arizona can do through the air. And Retzlaff, I mean,
you got to attack this Arizona team on the ground.
Yep.
And BYU can't really do that.
Well, not only that, I think it was a little bit of a mirage about what they came out and did to Baylor to start that game. You can't really, I mean, once Baylor woke up, it turned into a completely different game. So no, I like Arizona here. And, I mean, Brent Brennan, it's his first year. Second half of the season could be a completely different story with some of these numbers, especially from how they're executing in the red zone, which has been poor. How are they executing in the trench? It's been poor. I think they have a chance to get better on both sides of the ball. I agree with you here.
Retzlaff has some mistakes coming his way. And by the way, I mean, they beat Southern Illinois. They caught SMU, and they got pretty lucky in that game, but they caught SMU, and SMU was still in disarray from a quarterback perspective. They beat Wyoming. Who cares? They beat Kansas State at home. I mean, they had, 28 points in like 2 minutes off flukes. I mean, they were outplayed in that game on a down-to-down basis. Then, at Baylor, they just jumped out to that big lead and held on. I know they're coming off the bye here, but I think Arizona gets them. Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee over a 2-touchdown favorite here. Is Wilson going to play for Florida? That's a key question here. Does Florida bounce back? I would be inclined to bet this over. I think that's the look here. If Wilson plays, the Tennessee defense has issues. I'm talking about their secondary is bad. Haven't been tested yet. I think Florida can have some success throwing it.
Yeah.
I do expect Tennessee's offense to get back on track here. Why? Because Florida's defense is not good. They can't stop the run. That's what you have to look at. That's why I liked Arkansas last week. That's why I incorrectly like Oklahoma. You can stop the run. You can slow down Sampson. You can get this offense. So I couldn't lay over 2 touchdowns, but if this number keeps coming down, I would look at Tennessee first half. You got to remember they have Alabama on deck. Heupel generally has been very good in first halves. Yeah. Should be a raucous environment. Florida's still doing their quarterback rotation. Napier's been horrendous on the road. So yeah, I would lean Tennessee first half, and would look at the over, especially if Wilson plays, which is what I'm monitoring. Any thoughts here?
I'm having a hard time getting to this number. I'm just a little bit shy of where it's at, so I respect the move that's happened here. Plus, Florida's outside the top 100 in rushing success rate defensively, which tells me that Sampson might be the one that has the bigger game here. I'm still a little set back by the game plan that Travis Williams put on this Tennessee defense to stop them from throwing this personnel group that he put out there that he's never shown on tape once. Well, now that's out there for everybody to watch. And it's not like, besides one Deontay Thornton explosive pass against OU, that OU didn't have success, at least throwing up a couple of hurdles on the way to the end zone when that game got played. So I'm a little hesitant on what this Tennessee offense is and if the book has been out there and now Travis Williams has told everybody how to defend this. So I can't get there. I could be talked into the Florida number. I haven't bet it, but I agree with you. I think they can have success, especially on offense. Some of the numbers in here suggest that they're going to be able to do some damage here, at least get a couple scores to hang around. So I haven't made a decision between over and Florida, but I'm there.
Wake Forest, Clemson. Clemson just been rolling. I might be able to get here on Wake if they get the 21. I mean, their defense is terrible. They have more injuries. Clemson should be able to score, but Claiborne and company, that Wake Forest offense has some juice.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns at home. Hope this line keeps going up.
Yeah.
Clemson takes a ton of money every week now, so maybe it gets there.
Yeah, Wake Forest's defensive numbers have been horrific all year, but the one thing that they do is they stop explosive rushing. That's something that you have to have against Clemson's offense because that's the only way that they have chunk yards. Wake Forest's offense, strength of schedule 52nd, not too bad. They're producing a lot of success on the ground, and they're not beating themselves. They're top 25 in havoc allowed, which is where Clemson's defense thrives because there are other areas where Clemson is really struggling. They're outside the top 100 in line yards. They're not producing a pass rush. They're outside the top 100 in defensive finishing drives. If you can get into position, you can get points on Clemson. The problem is everybody's focusing on how many rush explosives and these huge gains that they see are putting up, 180 points on App State. Wake Forest, they can hang around. They can score some points. So I agree with you. I make it right on 21. I feel like this is going to be a Saturday morning steam that has me getting on the Demon Deeks.
Yeah, Donovan Green is out, which is unfortunate because when he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in the ACC, and he's just been banged up the past couple of weeks.
Right.
All right, let's move on to Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Who has arrived? The Diego Whisperer. I think I've gotten every Vandy game right this year. And I wanted to fade Vanderbilt. I think they're still celebrating on Broadway. Diego might still be turned. I wanted to fade them here in this spot. Stoops has not been good off a bye, by the way. He's 4-10 against the spread, failing to cover by like a touchdown per game. His teams generally haven't come out very sharp. And I also don't want to lay 2 touchdowns with this Kentucky team in a game that could have 8 possessions. So what do I think the play is here? Under all the way. Under. I also played Vandy team total under. I mean, this Kentucky defense is the real deal. What they did to Ole Miss, holding Ole Miss to 17 points without their top corner. They held Georgia below 17 points too. I don't think Vandy can move the ball on the ground. You can't run it on Kentucky. Kentucky will take away the explosives. I think Vanderbilt might be a bit flat. They don't have 2 weeks putting everything into the game plan against Alabama. I think Kentucky's defensive line will just dominate this Vandy offensive line. And the Vandy defense has been pretty good. They held their own against Alabama.
Defending the rush, yes.
And defending the run. And that's where Kentucky's been best. Kentucky's offense has been good running the ball. 123rd pass success rate, 14th rush success rate. Well, Vandy, top 15 rush success rate on defense. So Vandy wants to go super slow. Kentucky, they talked about tempo. Not happening. They're super slow. Limited possessions. Under. Low scoring game. I'll say Kentucky 24, Vandy 13.
Yeah. 12.5 was out there on Sunday for a couple of hours. And so I jumped on that as a numbers play from a hangover perspective, but I was aware of what Stoops does off of a bye and the total, which makes it a little bit tough. But at 14.5, if we get that live, it's not going to do their pre-kick. But 14.5 live, I probably would come back on this, but I completely agree with you on this under. I would really kind of focus on the first half under. When you look and say, well, can Diego run the ball against this Kentucky defensive line? The answer is absolutely not. This offensive line for Vanderbilt is outside the top 100 in line yards, which means Diego's the one that's got to do all the running himself. It's just not going to happen against this Kentucky defense when you look at what they do, especially defensive stuff rate. If it's like 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, Kentucky's top 15 in defensive stuff rate. So I agree with you. I think this is an under all the way. There's going to be a huge period of hangover. So I would do first half under, but I am going to try to get out. If Kentucky gets first score, we get a live number over, I will get out of the 12.5 that was on the open for the Wildcats.
All right, good stuff there. It's time to get to some trash. All right, we're back for some trash. Last week, the trash man, he missed a couple appointments. He was missing houses, not picking up the trash right the first couple weeks. Got back on track last week. Hopefully carry that throughout the rest of the year. We got 4 trash picks this week. As always, I'll give a couple sentences. You say if you agree or not. Let's start off on the island, baby. Hawaii against Boise State. Give me 3 touchdowns here. I think it's too high. I'm around 18. And yeah, Gentry's going to run wild. He's going to get his. Although Hawaii defense has been a little feistier than I thought they'd be this year. The problem is Boise State can't stop anybody. And I mean, you have Utah State out here putting up 30 on them. Georgia Southern put up 45. I mean, if you need it, the back door is going to be wide open. And Boise has bigger fish to fry. We've seen that with Gentry. He's not playing in the second halves of these games.
Right.
So I think back door is open. I think Hawaii can score. I think this is a good buy low spot on Hawaii. And Boise's reaching the top of its market. Bye week than UNLV. Too many points. Give me the Bows.
I'm going to agree with you. Boise State defensively is 116th against pass explosives. That is the run and shoot offense all the way. There are some holes on this defense. And hey, man, if Georgia Southern's going to put up a 50 burger and hang with Boise State, Hawaii's offense can absolutely do the same. And by the way, Hawaii's defense, they're still top 15 in defensive havoc. I mean, they can strip balls. So it should be a pretty interesting game. I like it.
Put it on in the agree or no? Not that strong.
Oh yeah. Put it in the agree. I just would like 21, but I'll hang. I'll hang until it's there.
All right. Next up, Buffalo. We're going with the Bulls against. There's a 10 out there right now. That's what I would search for. I'm still better than 9.5. But Buffalo against Toledo. This is a fade at Toledo. I do not believe in this team. I think Miami Ohio is way down. I know they won. They got their revenge last week. Horrible spot. Beat Miami Ohio. Go on the road to Buffalo. In the next 2 weeks, you have Bowling Green in Northern Illinois. There's your MAC title race. Sleepy spot here at noon. Buffalo off a bye. Got embarrassed at UConn. I think Pete Lembo is a good coach. We'll have them focused here. Massive turnover on the roster. So I think the bye came at a good time. And Toledo, they can't run the ball a lick. Buffalo's strengths in the secondary. Tucker Gleason, by the way, he'll have some game. He'll look good 1 week. The next week, he's completing 20% of his passes. We have a data point with both of these teams, by the way. UMass. Buffalo destroyed them. Toledo should have lost to them.
Yeah.
I like Buffalo here. Catch double digits. I make this around a touchdown.
I make it 6. And I'm going to agree with you, but I would really like to know how Buffalo is going to score. These numbers are horrific. But
Pick 6. Pick 6.
Yeah. Pick 6.
On the agree?
But we're on the agree because I will say this. Toledo has a horrible special teams rank, and Pete Lembo is like, what? The best special teams coach in the history of college football? Yeah. So, give it to me.
All right, let's get super ugly. Southern Miss. ULM. I'm fading my ULM boys. I mean, look, they've been great, but their offense is still horrendous, and they're the slowest team in the country. It's different when you're asking them to cover as dogs. Now you're asking them to cover a touchdown as favorites. Southern Miss actually showed some fight last week. We're at the peak with the Warhawks. I mean, you're asking this team that just wants to hand it off to Hardy and play 4 possessions to you're asking them to cover a touchdown now in league play. I think we've gone a bit too far. Agree or disagree? Or are you shook from last week with Southern Miss?
I am shook. I don't know what I'd like to ask you. I'm looking in the camera, Louisiana. What happened last week? Gas run out of the tank, or did we just decide to quit playing at the end of the game? Thank you very much. I'm a little shook by these ULM numbers, like almost dead last in explosives, creating finishing drives. Like, how is this?
Their offense stinks.
How are they winning these games? How? I don't. Okay, so
their defense has been good, and I mean they also have played like UAB, who we've seen, Troy, who we've seen. And they upset JMU, but they were outgaining that game by like 200 yards or something.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree or pass?
I will agree with you. One thing I'll throw in here, ULM 33.4 seconds per play. That might be the slowest in the nation.
Yeah, they're the slowest team in the country. I mean, this game should be a grinder. On the agree, Collin?
I agree. Love the under a lot more, but I agree.
So I put it up here?
Yeah, let's do it. My
Wow.
God, I've never agreed on like more than two trash.
All three trash or so far in the
I have
agree.
to go
And
take
last,
a
Nevada.
goddamn shower after this segment.
Nevada against Oregon State. I don't think Oregon State's any good. Faded them last week, fading them again here. They can't defend the run.
Right.
That's a problem against this Wolfpack rush attack. Beavers are what? Outside the top 120 in both rush success rate and EPA per rush. So, I mean, look, Nevada could easily be what, 4-0 4-1 if it didn't lose coin flips. They should have beat Georgia Southern. They were unlucky in
Should have
that
beat
game.
SMU. Should
They
have
could have
beat
beat
SMU.
SMU, and that has aged much better. And then they lost to San Jose State in the final seconds when the legend Nick Nash threw a touchdown pass. So they've been pretty unlucky. Oregon State, by the way, here are their wins. Idaho State, whatever San Diego State's throwing out there, the corpse of Purdue, and then Colorado State in double overtime. That's not a great resume. Can't stop the run. They also played double overtime game in Elevation next week in Elevation. It's not a great spot. And then who do they don't they have? I think they have UNLV on deck too. So give me the home dog, the home running dog. Agree or disagree?
I just threw money down on it and put it in the app. Nevada, let's go.
Wow.
I mean, the SMU game has stuck with me so much because of Nevada's coverage, because they are, I mean, the PBU University of Mountain West, but that's not what's going to happen here. What I can't get over is Avery Morrow just running all. I cannot get over this Oregon State rush defense. It is horrific. So yeah, Wolfpack.
By the way, a game I didn't even mention that I like. It's not trash. Colorado State. I like Colorado State again this week against San Jose State. San Jose State, I mean, play somebody. I know they just beat Nevada in the last minute, but go look at their schedule compared to Colorado State's. Horton is back. They're healthier on defense. I like the Rams there as well. All right, before we go, 3 and out. There's no Arkansas game this week, but we have to go nowhere fast. San Diego State at Wyoming. Gross. Oh, God. All right, we finally got one wrong here last week. I think Wyoming's without, their top 5 backs in this game. God, this game is horrifying. What do you got here? Over or under?
Well, I think San Diego State on the money line was the best bet in what I put in, what I have money on. I went with the over on this one, and I would love 41, but let's grade it 42.5. It's gross. There are things here from a San Diego State EPA perspective that are rising week after week after week. Sean Lewis has grown leaps and bounds with what they're doing from a rush and pass EPA. Wyoming is horrific in defending pass explosives, horrific in coverage. I mean, defense is so bad. I can barely find a damn stat that's within the top 100. And that's a soft strength of schedule at 99th for Wyoming. And things are getting worse because San Diego State plays so fast. And because I expect them to score, there'll be extra possessions here for Wyoming because San Diego State runs 23.9 seconds per play. It's tight. I don't like the fact that we've covered a huge key in 41, but for the record, let's go over. I like San Diego State better and this, but for the record, over this week.
I have no thoughts on this game, and I hope I see 0 plays. All right.
You got room for it on your TV? You got room for it somewhere? You got a side TV ready for this one?
No, I would absolutely not. All right, before we get out of here, let's go 3 and out. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you and welcome to our new channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us out in growing the channel early. If you haven't already, check out the Group of 5 guys as well with their episode and our live show, 10:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. Will be right here on this channel. What we do cover on the 3 and out portion, Friday Night Lights, which we'll get to in just a moment. We'll share our favorite, our favorite underdog, moneyline parlay, and our favorite bet. We'll go for it on 4th down and give our favorite bet of the weekend and break some of those games down as well. Collin, how goes it? You got to be riding high after that. Pittman saved his job.
Yeah,
win over Tennessee.
There's an article that came out, and the company, I'm not going to say who it was that put it out, they paywalled it. Not a lot of people have read this. Sam Pittman will keep his job because of Travis Williams, a defensive coordinator. He will be a head coach somewhere else. He came up with a 3-3-star package that has never been shown on film by the Razorbacks. Heupel made a comment that it took multiple series to adjust to it. We are lucky as Razorback fans to have Travis Williams as a defensive coordinator because that was a masterpiece, and that's the reason we won the game.
All right, let's dive right into some Friday Night Lights. Let's kick things off in the Big Ten in a clash between Northwestern and Maryland in College Park. Maryland sitting around a 10.5 point favorite here. They've taken a little bit of money. The over is taking a little bit of money up to 45.5. I think the biggest advantage in this game is the Maryland passing attack. Billy Edwards has been really good against the Northwestern secondary. Northwestern run defense has been a lot better than its pass defense. Northwestern offense has showed a little bit more juice since making the quarterback change. Saw that against Indiana, even though they didn't get to the window. They were right there at the end. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned is a part of the reason that I lean to the over here, and I'm probably going to end up playing that. And let's start off on the Northwestern side for them. Like, how are they going to score some points in? But the Maryland pass rush is going to be completely neutralized here because Northwestern is offensively 17th in pass blocking, and that's the best part of Maryland's defense is getting to the quarterback. So you would expect a little bit more methodical drives, a little bit more scoring chances. And the best chance of explosives from Northwestern may come from Cam Porter in the ground game. And that is an area with Maryland you could probably get some traction on. And then Maryland's best chance of scoring, of course, is Billy Edwards. I mean, this is not the same passer that we've seen from years before. A 13-5 big time throw to turnover worthy play rate. And, Northwestern is 117th in allowing explosives in the pass. I mean, they're pretty bad. So I think there's a chance here to get some unexpected points, not just because of the changes that Northwestern has made, but because they can neutralize the best part of the Maryland defense.
Yeah, I think the look here is over or nothing as well. Not a game I'm running to bet, and I despise Northwestern overs, but I think it's over or nothing there. Let's move on to another ugly one in the Mountain West between UNLV and Utah State. Utah State is just dreadful. UNLV, sitting as we speak, 18.5, 19-point favorite. Total around 66.5, sky high. I think this line is a little bit inflated and it's not the best spot for UNLV. Coming off that really heartbreaking loss against Syracuse, they have Oregon State, then they have the big one against Boise State on deck. The reason why I especially think this is a pretty poor spot is their defense was on the field for the entire game last week against Syracuse, which just controlled the clock throughout, and the game went to overtime. Now you're going to elevation. Do I trust the Utah State defense to get any stops? Not really, but I think they can potentially, maybe this is a look at UNLV gets out to a lead, and then you come in on Utah State live. UNLV might want to save some of its bullets. Their defense could become extremely fatigued in elevation after last week. So Utah State's second half, looking at Utah State potentially live, you can get them over 3 touchdowns because there should be plenty of scoring and back and forth in this game. What do you see here?
Yeah, there's a stat that came out of this game. I was just shocked because Utah State is dead last in a category, and I didn't realize it until I started going down a wormhole. It is a big number. It is a little bit overinflated, but keep in mind that UNLV has still played a strength of schedule outside the top 100, which tells you things about Kansas, Syracuse, Utah Tech, Dixie State's on there. And, at least Utah State's got a strength of schedule of 38th. So you're seeing an inflated number here because public perception is UNLV. They've not really played a really tough schedule. Now, quarterback Spencer Petras there for Utah State. He's taken over. UNLV has given up explosives in the air, but their coverage numbers have been in the top 40. So they do have a little bit of success rate, but they can be had for a couple of explosive passes. And you can thank Kyle McCord from Syracuse for that. He had 7 explosive passes, 355 yards. Not really sure if Utah State's offense can replicate that, but that offense is way better than that Utah State defense. It has been horrific. And now Hajj Malik Williams up to 409 yards through the air, 172 on the ground, and 8 total TDs through 2 games. He is elite. Got to question whether or not they just held him out of conference play and waited for Mountain West. Here's what I just cannot get over. This Utah State D It gave up 62 to Boise recently. They gave up 45 to Temple's offense. That's just over the past 2 games. So you would think UNLV is going to be able to do some damage here, maybe take a quarter till the elevation sets in before they get warmed up. But the Utah State defense gives up the highest amount of points in the second quarter of any team in the nation. It's 19.4 points. That is far ahead of the next team, Kent State. It's even farther ahead of the next team, North Texas. I don't know what's going on in second quarters with Utah State. They are horrific from a defensive standpoint. So for me, there's a lot of overs here. So you got to kind of comb through what you want, because UNLV could start off slow at the elevation, but they're going to kick it up, and Hajj Malik Williams should. I like first half over 34.5. There is a bye week on deck for UNLV. I don't know if that plays a factor in maybe the fourth quarter, if there's like a monster lead here. But I think the best wager here is a first half over on the 34.5 because of how horrific Utah State has been in the second quarter. And I actually think, Spencer Petras could get some explosives here. They might be able to help out with that 34.5. So I do like the over in the first half, but I like UNLV's team total over. A lot of overs here to pick from.
No, yeah, I mean, UNLV could get them themselves. UNLV doesn't have a bye. They got Oregon State next week and then Boise. So, yeah, I agree. If they have a big lead, they could potentially. And their D was fatigued, so I don't even hate the full game over. But I'll be looking for Utah State live. Staying with a team in Utah, let's move on to the Big 12 in the night clash between Arizona State and Utah in Tempe. This line's been bouncing all over. I was going to break some news here, but Brett McMurphy beat me to the punch that Cam Rising will indeed start. So this line was coming down. There was rumors that Cam Rising wasn't going to play. No one knows anything when it comes to Utah. Gets announced that he's in, and the line comes back up. As we're recording this, the line's sitting, what is it, Utah 6.5 still?
Yeah, we just raced up to 6.5.
I still think with Cam Rising, it's too cheap. I think it should be over a touchdown. I also, if you were listening to the podcast earlier this week, I bet Utah to win the Big 12, which I still like if you can find that out there. With Cam Rising, this is probably the best team in the Big 12. Win this game, and they're right back in business. So I like Utah for the game. I mean, look, Arizona State, they're improved. Scadabo's been great. But, I mean, come on, who have they beat? They beat a one-win Kansas team who melts down every single week. They beat Wyoming, who is abysmal. I mean, it's hard to put in words how bad Wyoming is.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State, I think the love for Arizona State has gone too far. They can't throw the ball. What's Utah going to do here? Just load the box. They're going to take away the run. Good luck to the Arizona State offense. But if Utah wins this game, right, they have one loss in league play. But say that they win in Tempe this weekend. Then they have TCU at home, at Houston, BYU at home, at Colorado, home against Iowa State, at UCF. Now, Colorado, that game looks much tougher than many of us have originally anticipated. Still like them in that game. But, I mean, TCU looks like a corpse. Houston, it showed some fight against TCU, but can't really move the ball. You get Iowa State at home, and then UCF. That was a game I was worried about, right? At UCF to close out the season. Is anyone even going to show up at the bounce house by that point? So I like Utah. I already have some Iowa State, right? And that Utah-Iowa State game could be huge.
Yeah.
I got myself some Utah too. I think with Cam Rising back, this spread should be over 7. What do you see here?
Yeah, if you're hesitant on the 6.5 or the 6 that's out there on Utah, because I think it's going to go up, I would make this game 9 with Cam Rising. So I expect.
Yeah, I'm like 8.
Yeah, so I don't think it's done, and it's really funny. I mean, last night I spent 60 minutes researching heavily. Did Cam Rising practice? Because you just can't get anything out of these. There's not a lot of practice reports out there, and I found a.
Did you have a drone? Did you have a drone trying to fly over the practice?
Even with the reach that you and I have, it's really hard to find out what's going on with this Utah team during practice. But there was a beat reporter who was not allowed to see practice. But after practice ended, Cam Rising stayed an extra 2 hours and put in additional work, which meant he practiced the entire time. You're going to play on Saturday for Kyle Whittingham, you're going to have to practice. And Cam Rising was there. But the problem was last night when I read this information, this number was tumbling 5, 4.5, 4. It touched 3.5 a couple hours ago. I said, this just does not make sense if Cam Rising is
Yeah, I was like, does someone know something? And I almost bet Utah when the number came down, and I should have. My gut was saying no one knows anything. Nothing gets out of Utah. And I had some people tell me that he was going to start, but I also knew that they probably didn't know anything. So I should have just bought it.
I started
after the
laying
buy, but
I started laying minus 180s cheap, and I was like, I'm not going to put that in the app. I don't want people to run to it because I needed to be verified first, and you never know. He could re-injure himself. I don't know. So I mean,
he still might not play. By the way, we're sitting here confirmed that he's in. Who knows? It's still an hour before kick. He's out. He's out for the year. It gets announced.
There's no bigger circus in Salt Lake than the Housewives of Mormon Lives, whatever. So listen, Arizona State, you ask yourself, like, how are they going to score here? They're dead last defensively in finishing drives. That's how big it is if Cam plays, because if you have any kind of offensive pulse on the field, you're going to be able to score on Arizona State. I can't tell you how bad you have to be dead last in finishing drives. And Stuck is right. What is this Arizona State offense going to do? Utah's defense top 10 in defensive finishing drives, top 15 in quality drives defensively. Numbers are good enough to be top 30 in defensive havoc. What's Sam Levitt going to do? Throw pass explosives? His chances of that are zero here. Best player on the team is Cam Skatebow, and nobody is moving the chains and creating explosives on the ground against Utah. So I agree with Stuck completely. If you're nervous about the spread and the rise and all that, maybe go throw the money line down. But I agree with you, Stuck. I think the play is getting a little piece of Utah to win this because the schedule coming up is conducive to them making a run here.
Yep. All right, let's move on to second down, and let's talk our favorite overdogs. If you're new here, that's our favorites. I'm going to roll with a team that has made it once into this segment for me. I'm going with Iowa. I like Iowa here against Washington. I think I had Iowa against Nevada in one of the most painful covers. It was like an 11-hour game because of the rain delay. I like Iowa here against Washington. I think that these teams, after playing Michigan, beating Michigan, are getting a bit overvalued. Michigan stinks, people. Like, I don't know how to get this through. Michigan is a bad football team. They should have lost to Minnesota at home. They were dominated by Texas. They had their one blip against USC, and we've seen USC hasn't been that great. When they unveiled a new offense, they still needed some luck at the end to get that win, and then they get significantly outplayed by Washington out west. This isn't a great spot for Washington either. Home, out to Rutgers, back to the West Coast. Get your national championship revenge over Michigan. Now, flying back east for a noon kick against Iowa. Kirk Ferentz been very good after a loss at home as an underdog or favorite of less than a touchdown. Talking close to 70% against the spread. Why do I really like this game, though? One, I think Caleb Johnson and the Iowa offense will hit enough run explosives. That's basically their offense. The Washington run defense is vulnerable. Now, against Michigan, didn't matter because you could just load the box. They don't have anyone to throw to. Can't believe I'm about to say this, but the Iowa passing offense actually has a little bit more juice than the Michigan passing offense. You have to respect it a little bit. So I think Iowa will hit enough rush explosives, and they're going to win on all of the margins, right? Penalties. What's Washington? 110th, 120th? You know where they're averaging like over 70 penalty yards per game. You know where Iowa is? Number one in the country. They're 50 fewer yards per game in penalties. Special teams. You know, it's one of the worst special teams units in the country. Washington. You know, as a great special teams unit again, Iowa. So, and then it's just all of those little things. Probably turnovers too. Going to win the turnover battle. That's how Iowa wins these games at home. Probably going to happen again in a great spot off a loss, catching Washington in just a tough travel spot, tough situational spot. So, yeah, I think special teams, the field position battle will be won by Iowa. And penalties, just all the things that are you going to send Grady Gross out there for a field goal again this week?
Hope not.
Give me Iowa.
Well, I mean, for you getting the Iowa to win, maybe you send him out there. I don't know. Listen, I don't know what we're doing here. You're going Iowa. I'm going Illinois. Kind of Big Ten freaks are we with these overdogs here? Look, it's there's a lot of things you could say about this game. I mean, it's a revenge game for Brett Bielema. He lost.
Just say Purdue quit.
I would say it's probably the last. I got 4 bullet points. This is the last one. I mean, listen, Bielema lost this game 44-19 to his former defensive coordinator. There's an axe to grind here all the way. There's just no answers for Luke Altmaier, what he's doing. 11-1 TD to INT ratio. Boilermaker, since they fired Graham Harrell, the offense is completely in the tank. The defense is completely in the tank. Boy, look at this schedule. Notre Dame 66-7, Oregon State 38-21, Nebraska 28-10, and 52-6 to the explosive Wisconsin Badgers. There's a short week coming up, Oregon next week. That's going to be even worse. 4 of the highest profile recruits for Purdue have decommitted like in the last 10 days. So I have to ask, how long until these players have quit? I think
Our top corner also said he's sitting out the year. Had it before last week.
Yeah, I hate to take an easy one here in this section for favorite overdog, and I really don't like backing Bielema with big numbers, but this is just, you just can't deny what's going on here with Purdue.
I think you put in the app first half. Are we going full game or first half here?
Both.
Well, what do you want for official? You want first half or full game?
Full game as of today. I'm sure this is going to steam on Saturday.
Okay. All right. Let's go. I mean, Purdue is just unbettable. There's a couple teams I can't bet in college football right now. I mean, I shouldn't say can't. Like, if Purdue, I mean, there's a number for everything. For example, UAB, I think, has quit. If they got the 28 against Army.
UCF's on quit watch.
Oklahoma State is on quit watch.
Yes, there's so much quit watch this weekend.
Man, if the board flashed UAB plus 28, would I bet it? I think I don't know, man.
I mean, they just saw the triple, right? They saw Navy. It was horrific, but they saw it.
Yeah, it's getting close. It's getting up there. I don't know. Probably would have to. But I don't know if I'd be able to hit some it. Anyway, all right. Two favorite favorites are Iowa and Illinois. What could go wrong? All right, let's move on to third down. Our favorite underdogs for our underdog money line parlay. Hit this last week. Let's I think it was our second time we've hit it this year. Let's keep the momentum rolling. I'm going to continue with the theme. Quit watch. Cincy. UCF, I mean, is anyone going to show up for this game? They looked, the last 2 weeks, I mean, they looked like they didn't show up against Florida. And Cincinnati, by the way, I mean, this team is, I think, still flying under the radar a bit. If you look at their schedule, they lost to Pitt in a game they should have won. They blew, and Pitt, by the way, is undefeated. They were up huge in that game. Blew it late, wore down. There was a delay of game on the defense on a 4th down that would have clinched the game, and they ended up losing by 1. Their other loss was at Texas Tech, who's in first place in the Big 12, by 3 in a game that was back and forth throughout. And they had all their running backs get hurt in that game. Corey Kiner back this week, but where Cincinnati's going to eat is in the passing attack. Sorsby's been great. UCF can't cover anybody. They can't get pressure. And this offense just looks lifeless. Give me the Bearcats.
Yeah, I'm going to go with LSU here for our underdog money line parlay. It's just an amazing situational spot for LSU. Ole Miss, this is their 7th straight game. This is their 3rd straight SEC game. Back-to-back travel after, they had a bounce back after the Kentucky loss. They went on to beat South Carolina. I know this roster is loaded, but if this is 7th straight game and 3rd straight in the SEC, that's not, to be taken lightly. LSU is completely off of a bye week. Any tweaks that they needed, they've been fine since the USC game. Ole Miss is still a really soft strength of schedule, 81st. And we're finding out these teams that have strength of schedules that are still pretty poor, sometimes they get rocked by offenses they haven't seen before. I think that's what we're going to see here. Now, Ole Miss has a havoc number that is top 5, they're number 1 in defensive havoc this week, top 5 in pass rush. It's just not going to apply here. LSU is 11th in pass blocking. Garrett Nussmeier is being protected by 2 of the best offensive tackles in the nation, 15% pressure rate. Nussmeier is fine against this Ole Miss havoc that's coming for him. The coverage grading is what really sticks out in the Ole Miss analytics. Why is it so low for Pete Golding? He runs a strict cover 1. You go into Nussmeier, he dominates cover one, 57% success rate, 23.5% of the time. Nussmeier is throwing explosives when he passes against a cover one. Positive EPA per pass. It's just a powder keg that's going to be able to be exposed on the back end of the Ole Miss defense. Also, is there a running game here from a freshman? Caden Durham.
Caden Durham.
Yeah, I mean, behind two of the best tackles, like I said, in the nation from a run blocking perspective also. His attempts are growing game by game. He had 11 in his last game. He's averaging now 4.5 yards after first contact. And that's over the last two games against South Carolina and South Bama. Ole Miss, heavy tempo. Is that really what you want to do here? 22 seconds per play. LSU loves to control the clock, and you're going to let them control this easily. They're going to own the time of possession. Plus, injury. Is there anybody more important than Trey Harris? Trey Harris has 64 targets. Let's look at the list after him. Juice Wells, 30. Caden Lee, 21. Trey Harris is a monster part of the pie of this Ole Miss offense. I don't like what they have on the back end from a coverage grading. When Jackson Dart, who has these, it really does have tremendous numbers with pressure. He has improved so much throwing into traffic and mid-range stuff. But you lose your top guy in Trey Harris, who has accumulated around 40 to 50% of the offense from a passing perspective. It's
any key down. That's who he's looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So LSU here, go Tigers.
I agree. We're putting it on our board, our whiteboard of transparency. We unveiled last week. This board looks very pretty. It's not going to maintain this way, for me at least. 5-0 on games we agreed on last week. Head-to-head, I'm 2-0. Trash segment, 2-0. LSU on the agree section. Yeah, I mean, look, number one, it's a great spot. Number two, Durham maybe does provide a little bit of balance, but the strength of the Ole Miss defense is their front and their run D.
Yeah.
But so even if LSU can't get the run game going, I think Nussmeier's could be able to drop back. And where LSU's offensive line does excel is in pass protection, right? So they're going to be able to give him time. And look, they were changing their run blocking schemes during the bye week. Maybe they fix some of that, and they can. And Durham has looked like he can provide some juice, not only running the ball, but out of the backfield. So, yeah, I think this bye came at a really good time for a team, the new defensive coordinator, new scheme. And look, this Ole Miss team, in the SEC so far, they faced Kentucky and South Carolina. Neither of those teams can throw it downfield. The biggest question mark on this Ole Miss defense is the secondary. So, yeah, I like LSU catching over a field goal here. Even at a field goal, I think is fine. Brian Kelly, for what it's worth, 35-18 against the spread as an underdog. Hitting 2/3 of the time, 27-13-1, close to 68% when catching over a field goal. After a bye, been pretty damn good. 15-8-1 against the spread, 65% covering by about 3.5 points per game. LSU fans, remember I was like, I feel like I never get to bet LSU, and here we are. LSU, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
All right, that is our underdog moneyline parlay, Cincy and LSU. And let's move on to, we're going to go for it on fourth down. Favorite bet of the weekend.
Look at you. Look at you with your pick. Woo, man. Look at you. Let's go.
I'm getting a little crazy. I'm going UCLA against Minnesota. Continue what I talked about earlier. Minnesota, yeah, they played Michigan tough. Michigan stinks. Then they caught USC in a great spot, and there was wind conditions. There was windy conditions which really hurt USC, and they were able to come back late in that game. They were able to run the ball, this is a tough spot for them. Traveling out west, for what it's worth, Big Ten teams going 2 time zones or more, 1-8 straight up. Something to keep an eye on with this new Big Ten schedule, and ACC too, with all the increased travel. But UCLA's been feistier than I expected. I like some of the changes they made on the offensive line last week. This Minnesota team just doesn't profile as a team that you want to back as a favorite. This game should be super low possessions. UCLA wants to go slow. Minnesota wants to go slow, run the ball. I think that this spread should be closer to a field goal. Minnesota off that emotional win over USC, heading out west to play UCLA, who's covered 3 straight. Their defense is still playing hard. Their offense is starting to figure some things out. And by the way, you want to talk about a strength of schedule? UCLA. This will feel like a welcome relief. You know, who have they played the past 4 weeks? Indiana, now a top 20 team. Oregon, top 5 team. LSU, top 20 team. And Penn State, top 10 teams. They had 4 straight top 20 teams. The travel isn't ideal and, just playing all these tough teams. But I think Minnesota washes that out because Minnesota has gone from what? Iowa to Michigan to USC, 3, physically demanding emotional games. So I think that potential advantage for Minnesota, you throw in, both teams are traveling, I think washes out. So I like UCLA here. Give me the home dog in what should be a low-scoring game.
I'm probably going to join you here, which is weird after all the feelings I had for UCLA for the last couple of months.
Putting it on the board or no? Not official.
Put it on the board. We're going.
Oh, baby.
Row, the boat can stop. It ain't rowing. All right.
Sink the boat.
Let's go Red River. I really thought I was going to be on Oklahoma here. I thought the spread would be too high. Power ratings got updated this past weekend. I made it 14 on the dot. Thought I would sit back, maybe see if a 13.5 popped. It never popped. I think it might still pop, but I would probably hit it again. I like the Longhorns that much. Now, Quinn Ewers is back. He has been flawless in a crowded pocket this season. He's been great with pressure. So even if Oklahoma is able to get some past this offensive line, he's been great. Plethora of targets for this Longhorns offense right now, led by Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. Ewers is going to go up against cover 3 against the secondary for the Sooners, is what they run for coverage when they go in zone, which is most of the time. Ewers last year dominated cover 3, 58% success rate, explosive pass on 1 of every 4 attempts. You go and look, I know Texas lost this game last year. Quinn Ewers still went for 346 yards, 31 of 37 passing. I'm not questioning Quinn Ewers coming into this game. Now, the rushing attack, top 20 in success rate, but the Texas offensive line is 72nd in line yards. So what that tells you is that Jaden Blue, Jared Gibson, Quintero Wisner, they have created highlight yards. The running backs are doing work here. Defensive havoc is the reason that OU beat Auburn. They were whipped that entire game. You get a Kip Lewis pick 6 and it crushed Stuckey. So I don't see that happening here. Quinn Ewers was really good against this defense last year. Same coverage aspect. Quinn's proved it over a lot of games of what he can do against this. Now, on the other side of the ball, they really haven't faced an offense in the top 60 per SP plus, but the Michigan game is a perfect template for what is about to happen here, right? Do we expect Oklahoma to throw? No. Everybody's still hurt.
Burks is out. Yeah, Burks just got announced out. And by the way, Michigan at least can run the ball a bit.
Yeah.
Oklahoma can't run it. I still think that's the way you attack Texas in the future, right? But you have to have a competent passing attack, right? That they respect. Against Michigan, they didn't respect it. They can shut Michigan down. And then you can really test Texas and the loss of Sweat and Murphy. Well, you don't really have to respect the Oklahoma passing attack, and Oklahoma can't run it. So how do they keep up with Texas unless the defense has just a superhuman effort, which is it's hard to envision them keeping Texas in check. By the way, I would lean under here. Not sure I can get there because I tweeted out, remind me last year, and I bookmarked it and put it on my calendar. I said, remind me not to ever bet a Red River under again in my life. I mean, if you looked at some of these scores lately, they're all like 45-40, 50-45, 53. I had the worst luck in this game, by the way. Remember that I lost Texas plus 7.5 and triple overtime.
Yeah, that was rough. That was a rough one.
Painful losses of my life. So I would lean under, but because how's Oklahoma going to move it?
I think
they have time to prepare to go after. They know Hawkins. Hey, spy him. We can't let him beat him with his legs. What else does Oklahoma do here?
I think the better bet is the Oklahoma team total under, because I don't know if Sark wants to stop scoring. And I think the handicap. So the reason why I waited on this number is because I wanted to know the wide receivers. And you mentioned it, like Burke, soft tissue, gone. Andrel Anthony, a setback, more surgery. Jalil Farouk just came out of a boot. You seen people that come out of a boot? They ain't running fly routes and go routes down the field. What's the rest of this offense? You mentioned it. Success rate, 123rd, both passing and running. Like, they're not going to be able to run the ball. They're 128 in success rate in passing downs. They get behind the chains. OU gets even worse. So I think one thing that I want to touch on about why Texas is for real a national title contender. Me and Steve Sarkisian had a conversation at SEC Media Days, cash your tickets. I said, why can't you score in the red zone? Where's the touchdowns? We just don't have Roschon. We don't have Bijan. I said, do you have any options? I got 24 options here during practice, and we got to figure out who it is. Let's go and look right now what's going on. 12 different players have scored a touchdown for Texas. I believe 8 of them have scored at least 2 touchdowns. There are so many options that are getting into the red zone. And I'm sorry, getting touchdowns in the red zone. This team is touchdown crazy. Sark is in his bag, and he has so many options on this offense. Listen, I mean, I'm not disrespecting Danny Stutzman and the defense for OU, but it's like Tennessee. You just can't hold it up. You're not going to be able to cover with this. You're not going to be able to score with this. And things like Auburn are going to continue to happen when your offense continues to be bottom 10 in the nation, no matter what it does. Give me Texas here. If you want to be patient, look for a 13.5. I do think there's just going to be enough OU in here. This is way too big of a number, but I think 14 is the number I'd fire on.
Yeah, and look, Oklahoma's defense, they might have been gassed, but Auburn put up like 300 yards in the first half. And then after seeing Tennessee against Arkansas, maybe that effort wasn't as great. For what it's worth, a couple nuggets on this game. First Red River rivalry, it's an SEC game. So finally, this game just means more. But that feels weird to say. It also won't be at noon, which is very odd.
Yeah, that's weird.
So an SEC game between Texas and Oklahoma that's not at noon.
But you know what that means? Like everybody get drunk, right? There's going to be a more rowdy crowd of drunkenness.
Yeah, it should be an awesome atmosphere, as always. Biggest favorite, Texas, the biggest favorite they've been in this series since 2005 when they won the national title. Hooked them. All right, that'll do it for us here on 3 and Out. All right, good stuff there. The board update.
Oh, man.
The 4 trash. Actually,
you might as well keep it on all weekend after that segment. You might as well just keep the whole outfit on.
All right. The board of transparency agree, which we're 5-0 on this year. We have LSU, UCLA, and then all 4 trash. Hawaii, Buffalo, UL Monroe, and Nevada. This has never happened. This is a show first. Only one head-to-head in Morgantown, Iowa State, West Virginia. All right, a bonus trash segment, Collin. Since you agreed with me on all of the trash, I'm telling you, I'm not agreeing with this one. You're back on your Rice bullshit. I saw this come across the app. Would you like to defend yourself here?
Rice is covering this game. All right, let's look at UTSA here. 122nd coverage. Absolutely cannot defend.
Who do they have to cover? They don't have to cover anyone against Rice.
Absolutely. Look, that's all Rice is doing these days is throwing the ball. That's all they do is throw the ball. I'm not saying they're good at throwing the ball, but that's all they do.
Who?
They're third in pass blocking. No one's going to touch them. They're going to get balls down the field. It's a heavy tempo game. Rice is absolutely covering this game. You want to disagree? Put it on the disagreement side of the board.
No, I'm not betting to the side.
UTSA
by the way,
is bad on defense. They're really bad at defending the pass.
I mean, Rice is bad at everything. But I might put home field advantage in this game at 0. Do you know the Rice Stadium? The Rice Stadium seats 75,000. It's the most depressing thing when they're this bad. They're 1-4. They cover the end zones with like banners or whatever. And then it's completely empty. But I think their stadium sits 75,000. Rice Stadium. Yeah. And there's like 7 families in the stands when they're this bad. And then you just have the Rice Owl signs and no thanks.
I have not brushed off the Owl GIF all year, and I am ready, Stuck. You better be ready. It's coming.
All right. Well, good luck to you watching that game in prime time, 7 p.m. Eastern. You'll be the only one. You and the 7 families at Rice Stadium. All right, that'll do it. Thanks as always to Collin for joining me. Thanks to our producer Matt Mitchell on the back end. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Live show, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, Saturday. Group of 5 guys, their episode's out. Always do a great job. Make sure you check them out. Give them some support because I have to take all of the Diego coverage as the president of the fan club. But hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy a great college football slate. Recap episode be out Monday morning as always. Don't forget to call the voicemails 959-BAD-BEAT. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.
Peace out.